Heifers, and welcome to Angus IT, the podcast all about anxiety, depression, and sleep. Sleep, what is it? I don't quite know because I'm not currently having any of it. I am lacking sleep, or perhaps lacking quality sleep, or maybe better put, I don't have a good sleep schedule. And I'm talking about this because, to be honest, I am so tired, fatigued, what have you, that I can't really form other thoughts about anything else. I feel like, I like to talk about what's going on with me in the present, and presently I just keep not setting myself up for success with my sleep. And I think a lot of that has to do with an old familiar depression thought pattern I have that I like to dust off on occasion, open the pages, and force myself to read, chant, cast spells. And that thought pattern is that the day is hard to get through. During the daytime, I have to-dos. I have things that can stress me, not that they necessarily are there and stressing me, but it's the stress of potential stressors, which is cute. And that's when people are most likely to reach out to me because we're all awake, we're all working, we are active, I get emails, things are happening, DMs are alive. And sometimes when you're not feeling super not depressed, happy, I don't know, content, stabilized, I don't know. But when you're not feeling it, you can get that decision fatigue. I don't know if that's the right word. You know what? Notification fatigue. I get notification fatigue, and I will sometimes get overwhelmed if I have a lot of texts and I have a lot of things come in at the same time. Usually not work things. I can kind of separate that. I mean, you can always get stressed if a ton of things hit you all at once at work, but I can usually filter through that. But in terms of personal life things, it's just a lot sometimes. And it's nothing personal to anybody, but it can weigh on me because I avoid it and I let things build up. And one thing that I have been a lot better at is opening messages immediately and just kind of absorbing it and allowing myself time to respond. I think there is a huge fear in our culture about being left on read. Someone sees your text, you see that they read it, and you wait. And you know that if you open a text, they're going to see that you opened it, but you haven't responded. And I think it's not fair to expect people to respond immediately. I totally get if it's an urgent question, or if it's something where someone is clearly ghosting you as opposed to just telling you what's up and it's been a while. I totally get that. But otherwise, I think it's kind of harsh to expect people to always be by their phone and ready to drop everything, get out of the zone, out of the focus, or if they're talking to somebody, to just drop everything and respond immediately to what you've said, especially if it's a complicated question, or if it's hey, what are you doing 3 weekends from now? Usually that requires someone to pause, look at their calendar, make sure they didn't make any prior commitments, things that take time. And again, if you're in the middle of a work project and you try to respond to every single text that comes in, that can get overwhelming, but you also want to check and make sure it's not an emergency. I don't know. I just really want to kind of push this better vibe of it's okay if you're left on read for a little bit, even when you're doing scary things, even when you're being hey, I'm going through this, or I have an issue with this. Those can be really hard to send and deal with, which is why sometimes it's better to do it in person or over a phone call. But to be fair, think about how long it probably took you to craft that text. You got to give people time to sit, think, and respond. And that allows them to better communicate with you as opposed to some knee-jerk reaction, whatever. And if you're having this stress with work things, if something is happening for some reason, you're at a conference, I don't know, I always just respond and say I just want to let you know I received this message. I'm currently here. I'll be sure to get back to you at X date or whatever. I don't know. I don't even know how we got down this rabbit hole of being left on read. I'm very passionate about it, but we're going to try to circle it back to sleeping. Okay, I remember how this connected to sleep because I have been very fatigued and tired, and in a way, life has become my notification fatigue, and I've been a lot better about going through these messages so they don't add as a stress to me when I'm already like, ugh. And sleep is very important. I think we can all agree. We might not all participate in healthy sleeping habits, but I think we can all concur like sleep is definitely needed for human beings. It can greatly affect our health in many different ways. And for me, sleep is one of the biggest factors that contributes to how well my mental health will be that day. It doesn't necessarily always determine, if I get 8 hours of great sleep, I won't be depressed or anxious that day, but I have a much better chance of not feeling that way, or at least dealing with any grossnesses that pop up. Any gross things that pop up that are gross, I can be like, okay, I'm better equipped now. Because of that, I used to get actually very anxious about sleep, which is fun. I had alarm anxiety where I was afraid my alarm wouldn't go off. And so this was usually in college, I think, mostly college. I think one time my alarm didn't go off and the panic I had was overwhelming. And, it's never great to miss something, but at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things, you look a decade later, did it matter? No, it's okay if you were late to class. It wasn't fun, but you got through it, right? But it was just overwhelming to me. And so I would set 3 alarms on 3 different devices, not just 3 alarms on my phone, but I had my phone, I had a physical alarm clock, and then I set one on my laptop. And I would double check that they were all set. And then I'd drift off to sleep. And then I would just wake up in a panic randomly throughout the night thinking I had missed my alarm. And not just waking up and being like, oh, what? But heart pounding anxiety, jerking out of bed, worried that my alarm clock didn't go off, which isn't fun. Going to sleep anxious, waking up anxious. It's not a healthy cycle. And I'm trying to recall how I broke that after a while. It may have just been that time passed or I changed my environment. I went home, wasn't in the dorm anymore, and I didn't need to worry about setting an alarm. So it felt less stressful. And then when I came back to it, it was fine. But definitely setting up 3 alarms every night and then just instantly making myself panic wasn't great. So, I remember what I actually started doing was I started listening to sleep meditations. And so I had this app at one point. I don't think it exists anymore, but you would play the app and you would go through a meditation with the end goal that by the end of the 30 minutes, you're really solidly tired or asleep. And I had the deepest sleep when I did that. And when I had better quality sleep, I stopped worrying so much about the alarms, and just in general, that has always been a really helpful tool for me. My mind likes to go a million miles per hour sometimes, and I used to go to bed and think, now is the time I can let all the thoughts run free. In a way, it was exhilarating. I had a good time, which is weird to say, it's fun. I have so many different thoughts, but it was in a way, I'd had coffee and was doing a brainstorm session, but it was at night, and that was the only time I really felt creatively open or I could just chill. No one's going to bother me. We're all asleep. Again, kind of like that thing I was saying earlier. During the daytime, people can talk to you. We're all awake, most of us. But at night, we're all asleep. I can totally ignore people. If they text me, it's sleeping hour, which then became my waking hour. I've always been a night owl. I love staying up late, and my body, I am pretty sure, wants to stay up until 4 a.m. Every time I've ever had a situation where I stay up until 4 a.m., my body adjusts very quickly. I might be tired, but the next few days are very hard to adjust to get me back to a regular sleeping schedule where I'm at least in bed before midnight. Going to bed in the a.m. and then waking up in the a.m. that tends to not be fun, not be the best. So I had that issue where I only thought I could enjoy my day at night. So depressed Elaine would get through her day. It'd be really rough. And then finally it's nighttime. No one can bother me. I'm truly alone. And now I can actually feel better. and I am engaged in the things that I had lost interest in. So this is where I enter like YouTube holes. I watch movies. I would write. I would just start doing a ton of things that would keep me up until 2 a.m. because I didn't want to go to bed because I wanted that good feeling to last. But then I would wake up and I would be tired, and then that would kind of keep the cycle going. So I'm a night owl, but I'm not always a healthy night owl. I think it's wrong to say that everyone should follow the same sleep schedule. We all have different bodies and stuff, but I do think it's important to have one and to ensure that you're getting the good quality sleep that you deserve and need to function. That brings me to today. I've mentioned that I've been depressed these past couple of weeks. It's going through waves. I do feel like I'm kind of coming out on the other end, mostly because there have been a lot of things I'd been avoiding, which were adding to the depression. Things like, checking my budget and taking care of laundry that had built up, kitchen grime, things like that do weigh on you over time. And it's like that metaphor someone once said, the example where if you hold your hand out and you're holding a water bottle, it's not that heavy. But if you hold your arm out with that water bottle for a really long time, your arm will start to shake and get tired. And even though the water bottle's weight hasn't changed, your muscles and their endurance can only last so long with such a pressure. So I had a bunch of water bottles I needed to deal with that, shockingly, were very easily dealt with. I think 15 to 20 minutes on each task really cleaned it all up, and I let it build up for weeks. Yes. Yes. Even coming into this recording today, I wanted to record this in the afternoon. It is now 7 o'clock. Not really ideal, but hey, I'm doing it. And I did wake up this morning at 8:30. I made myself wake up and stay up. That doesn't mean I necessarily got out of bed immediately and dressed and all this stuff. My baby goal right now is to wake up before 10 a.m. and stay up. Once I get my body used to that, then, I'll be like, okay, let's do this and add this. But I think for me to have a productive morning and make sure I stay up, I need to start with things that make me happy because I'm depressed. And I want to try to give myself a really good start to the day and feel like I have a really good base I've set for myself, I guess, a good baseline. I also sometimes will lose sleep over thinking about my morning and automatically assuming I'm going to ruin my morning, maybe by not following my morning routine that in my head sounds ideal, but I don't act out. And every morning I don't do it, I think, oh, I'm a failure. So I wake up thinking immediately, oh, I'm tired, and then, oh, I'm a failure. And like by saying it, it becomes true. Not that those things are true, by the way. You are not a failure no matter what. When I say it, though, about me, it's true. But for other people, no, it's not. Don't you love that? Don't you love when that happens? But, kind of like if those are your first thoughts every single day, that becomes a pattern in your mind, and then it's going to kind of fulfill it. So I try not to have my first thought every morning be, ugh, I'm tired. I just try to be like, I'm awake. And now I'm going to read a book, or I'm going to play a stupid game on my phone, just something where I'm awake, but I'm easing into the day and I'm trying to set up a better blocking schedule to get things done. But if you put a lot of pressure on your mornings and it keeps not happening, maybe change up what that morning routine would look like. That's what I've done for me, and I'm testing it out this week. And I don't know, I guess 1 out of 7 days so far, I have woken up at the time I wanted to. And you can get really excited too. A lot of the things you can do at night to prepare for your morning will help out. Like if you already choose your outfit for the next day, I should do that because I had a really good stretch where I did that. And I can't tell you how helpful that was. I sometimes do this thing where, I don't know why I own clothes that I don't feel good in, but That's how I roll. So sometimes I will just put on all these clothes where I feel gross and am like embarrassed. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I did that today. I put on an outfit where I was like, I don't really like this t-shirt's fit on me and these pants are a little too tight, so I don't feel comfortable. And then I walk out in public. I hadn't showered. My hair was gross. And, that doesn't really make me feel good. It's not even just, caring about my looks. It's just more like I have things that make me happy, and that outfit didn't make me happy. I am someone who can be very easily influenced by the things I'm wearing. I like to wear lipstick to be productive. I don't know what that's about, but I put on a lipstick and I'm like, I'm going to get away with murder. I always say that when I use the lipstick example, and I don't want anyone to think I am a murderer, despite how often it does come up. It's interesting because a lot of the things I'm talking about aren't necessarily about the specific pillows and positions for sleep or like scents to have before you go to bed, which I do like. A good lavender is very calming, but it's a lot about what is happening in my day that tends to affect my sleep. And I think it does go back to that whole idea where I had created this mentality that I can only be happy and have fun after 10 p.m. And I don't want that to be true because first off, if I can have more of those good vibes during the day, that's like 14 more hours of joy as opposed to like a 5-hour late night cram session where I do in the background have that guilt. And so it's not even properly enjoying the adventure. And so one of those things that I do during the day, I'm not really good at true relaxation. There are things that on paper might sound calming for me. I'm like sitting on the couch and watching a movie or like binging my favorite show. But I don't know if I'm going to explain this right. It's not like for me an active relaxation. It tends to be passive. I'm usually avoiding doing something, or it's just really not as engaging as I might want, as opposed to when I purposely set up something where it's like I light a candle and I'm reading a book, or, even if it's like I had made a cute charcuterie board to watch the movie or something, like just something with a little more intention behind it so I actually can enjoy it purely as it is. Instead, I fall down YouTube rabbit holes where I feel like I'm just paralyzed. I feel like I am attached to my couch. I don't move, and the less you move and the less that you're like trying to make your brain do thought things, the more stagnant it becomes. It's kind of like if you have a puppy and you want to tire them out, you're going to take them for a walk, let them run around a park. You're not going to try to get them to sleep all day because then they will be awake all night. Same thing kind of goes for you if you aren't mentally or physically just doing things that might exert some of that energy. You're going to have less energy. That's at least been my experience. What do people always say? Hold on. I'm having to like engage my inner Pinterest self-care girl side. As Isaac Newton once said, a body in motion stays in motion. And that is how your soul is too. I'm sorry. I had to do that. But it's true. It's true. If we lack that stimulation, things get boring. And for me, it's kind of like, I guess, a workout for your brain too. I become less creative because my mind isn't being challenged in any way. And then I get depressed because depression already is sometimes just this feeling of emptiness and blobness. And so if on top of already having that external fun on my shoulders, I'm also having that, it's not as great. And so I do think there are shows that can make you think. I don't always want to bash TV because I think that you can get some value out of it, but reading tends to make me a little more focused. I've been turning my phone off more again. I was pretty good at that, but there's things where it's like if I open up Instagram and I instantly feel anxious or annoyed or down, which has been happening, like I either feel neutral or I feel some other negative emotion, then why am I opening it up? Why am I constantly opening up Twitter? I'd rather scroll through once and then catch all the happy, have fun, instead of like every 15 minutes on the hour going through and checking the same things over and over again, and they don't make me happy. And so I really do think that a lot of the day anxieties can affect our sleep. Clearly, I'm sure you've had a time where you went to bed and then you just stared at the ceiling and all of the day's anxieties come back. Suddenly, as you're kind of like slowing down, other things from your past pop up. That's when we joke a lot about like, oh, that one time in 3rd grade, I farted really loudly in class. Like it just comes back and you're like, why did that happen? It can really get bigger and worse, like when it rains, it pours. Sometimes I want to engage in that, which sounds weird, right? Like who wants to be anxious? I don't. But in a way, I'm like, I don't. It's always been hard for me to explain this part, and I know other people relate to it. It's just hard to put into words that like you almost want to feel worse. Like when you already feel bad, you almost want to beat yourself up more, because usually the things I feel bad about are failures, quote unquote, on my part. And so almost as punishment, I want to bring up every other time I failed. And then that can bring up a lot of side emotions like anger or fear. And then that's when you start like making up fake arguments with people. Like I used to do this thing where I just constantly thought that everyone was going to attack me and I'd have to defend myself constantly. And so I would go to bed and I would think of like maybe one thing I'd done that day that someone might have an opinion on. And I would go through and think of every possible thing that they could say against me, any kind of criticism or passive aggressive thing. And I would think of a reaction to each one of those. And I would do that for multiple things. That does not make anybody feel happy. I have no proof that would happen, that fake arguments that are not in the present can really affect the way that I view that person or how I deal with a situation if it does pop up, because then I'll be like, I knew it would happen. I knew it would happen. But that's not always the case. So there's no point in trying to engage in that behavior, but I know that this is not how this person would react. Sometimes there are things that you can never be prepared for, but I know overall how to stand up for myself and to respect myself. So kind of a blanket response to all of those things. But I would say the main thing is that depression can both make you very sleepy and very tired. You can sleep for like 15 hours a day and still be tired. You can maybe get 5 hours of sleep. You're still tired. I had a pretty good streak going, and then I hit an afternoon slump, which happens for most of us, but sometimes there is a thing where you can get more depressed as the day goes on. It has something to do with like kind of like the morning chemical burst, and then, the sun's going down. Sometimes it is that like lack of interaction then with people, even though we may not always feel like chatting with people. I do really think interacting with the humans in your life can make you feel a lot better. You get out of your head, because it's so easy when you're depressed or anxious to get stuck in your head and kind of forget that the outside world exists. So having someone to talk to can easily ground you, I think. But yeah, as the evening progresses and the day progresses, or maybe you've had enough time to create some failures, if you're me. But it gets hard. So for me, let's say I was really grooving, and then lunch hit, and then I just in my head was like, you know what? I always ruin my afternoons. What makes me think this afternoon will be any different? And by having that thought, I kind of did it to myself. Same thing with being like, what's the point in thinking I'll wake up and actually follow my morning routine? I never do. So therefore, it won't happen tomorrow. This is pointless. Like I'm already deciding that I have failed and that I won't be able to do it, even though I haven't done it yet. It's not a productive thought, and it's not a true thought. I mean, it might be true that I haven't been able to follow the structure I wanted to in my mornings, but it doesn't mean I'm going to forever be a failure and never be able to follow through on these things ever again. That's just never true. There's always an opportunity to change something, adjust, what have you. And so I think that's what was able to get through to me today, to wake up at 8:30. I mentioned this in my depression loophole episode. I am someone who, if I just keep thinking about it and writing it down, I will get tired of myself not taking care of something, and then I just do it. And we reached that point with me waking up. I kind of had this thought of like, if I was able to see my psychiatrist and have a therapy appointment, I told her everything that was going on, what would I feel like? And honestly, I felt like kind of back a year ago when I might have had to up my medication again or switch medications. I did not want to switch medications. I really like the one I'm on. It doesn't have a ton of side effects. Changing medication isn't like the most fun process. And so what I had done back then is I kind of did a cold turkey on everything. I started working out. That's when I made sure I had a set schedule. I meditated. Like, I did everything I could within my control to see if I could avoid that, and it worked. I was able to at least bring some more stability to myself and feel better. And so I realized, I think this is what really pushed me. I thought again, like, if I told her that, she might recommend that we change medications again, or that might be the path if I continue to feel this way. And I don't want to do that. And that is a great motivator for me. So not necessarily like trying to bully myself into doing things. I don't think that's healthy, but reminding myself why it's important for me to do these things is helpful. I think sometimes we might think we know why we want to do it. Like, I want to wake up early so I can get a lot done during the day, is true. But at the core of it, as it turns out, a lot of the anxiety I had around it was more about feeling stuck in my mental health disorder and feeling like I couldn't combat that, which is like way more hardcore and like really like hits you, you know, like sometimes I forget that I can't stop being bipolar. That will always be something I have. And that's hard to swallow. That's hard to feel like I can't just do X, Y, and Z and then I'm good. Like, I have to kind of keep going at it. And that apparently bled into these other to-dos that I've been trying to work on and accomplish. And sleep has just seemed like this overall biggest failure because I know that it affects so many other things in my life. And by not doing it, I knew I was letting myself down. And it's like, why would I want to let myself down? Why would I personally sabotage myself? Because I have bipolar, like I'm depressed, and that's just chemicals in my brain. I have thought patterns. I have, a history of easily snapping back into the distorted thoughts and just kind of, again, piling on myself. It kind of feels like I take a few steps back, but that's not true. It's just I know how to approach these things better and better. And, I'm in a weird phase of life. We all are. And I just think we should try to be a little more lenient and do what we can. So yeah, sleep, it's important. And there are a lot of factors I think that can go into it. Obviously for me, there are a lot of things that I connect to my sleep, and by really addressing them and facing that fear head on, like I made myself face my budget, which I was really scared about doing. And I felt a lot better. And what do you know? I went to bed last night and I woke up early. So, maybe face your inner demons. Get an exorcist and say, goodbye, assholes. And then maybe you too will get sleep. Anyway, I'm not a health professional. I don't have insomnia. That's a whole other story. This is just my anxiety and depression tickling my eyelids from closing. Oh no. I'd love to know your thoughts though. What are your sleep patterns and what do you do to maintain them, or what struggles do you have trying to go to sleep? I finally bought the pillow of my dreams, and that has made me extraordinarily happy. It was way more money than I ever thought I would spend on a pillow, but I sleep for half of my life, so it seemed worth it. But thank you so much for listening to this episode of Angus IT. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Angus IT. I also have a website, www.angusit.com. I also have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/AngusIT. I am behind on my posts, but I have a plan to spam everybody almost daily for the remainder of May. So get stoked for that. I'm about to have some special photos also for others. That was weird to say. Anyway, I'd love for you to go join. I hope that you have a lucid dream and you get to control everything that happens in your dream. Like, you can be like, I want a bucket of chicken, and you get it and you can taste it, and then you're like, I want James McAvoy to be here, and then he is, and he eats the bucket of chicken with you, and then you're like, what if John Hamm was here too? And then John Hamm is also there, and you're all eating chicken, and it's just like really awesome. Or whoever you want there, I don't know. It's fine, really fine, guys. So fine. With that, I will talk to you next Wednesday. Bye, Heifer.